Welcome into another edition of Ringside Review. I am Athan Hristodulu, joined alongside by Matt Colpitts, and today diving into the Raw after WrestleMania as Triple H has gone on and rewrote some of the wrongs and made them right coming out of what was a bit of a disastrous end for WrestleMania 41. Matt, we're going to dive into it all. We're going to break it all down, and we got to kick things off with, of course, John Cena and Randy Orton. We got the confirmation, courtesy of an RKO out of nowhere. We didn't get much of an explanation about the ending of WrestleMania, and I will say that they did enough, though, to make me kind of forget about some of the things that I was upset about and give me a lot to look forward to, and this was a good step in the right direction. This was something that a lot of people expected. Backlash is in St. Louis. It's Randy Orton's hometown. He is the literal poster boy for the match. Are you ready to relive 2009 in 2025?
I am, man. I'm so excited that they're just pulling the trigger. Obviously, with Cena now having the belt after WrestleMania, you might as well just start firing off the dream matches and the nostalgic matches that we have been wanting. Everybody was kind of anticipating that maybe Randy's going to be saved until the very end since, Edge is gone in a different company. You look at kind of Cena's greatest rivals that are still active, and Randy Orton is probably top 3, maybe top 2, maybe even top 1 on many people's lists in terms of still active old foes for John Cena. So the fact that, we're going into Backlash in St. Louis and they are just absolutely firing the trigger on this, literally a night after Cena wins the title, you don't really get any follow-up with Cody Rhodes on Monday Night Raw. They're just immediately launching you into a Randy Orton program. I like it. If you're going to just fire it off, Raw after Mania is the perfect place.
Yeah, I almost feel like this is kind of taking the path of least resistance. You're not sitting there trying to explain yourself away. You're just moving on and you're diving right into it. And it was as perfect of a setup. And we're getting... And if you had told me that something like this was going to be coming in 2009, I would have never believed you. But a face Randy Orton going up against a heel John Cena. And I will say, I'm not a blind, nostalgic wrestling fan. I am well aware that some of the matches between John Cena and Randy Orton weren't necessarily the greatest back then. But I am here for the nostalgia, and I'm hoping that at this stage, with the roles being reversed as to who's doing what in this matchup, we'll get something very different from what we got the first time. And I feel like John Cena's first official singles match back at WrestleMania already kind of showed us that. It was a more slower, methodical, heel style of wrestling from his end. He was pulling out moves we haven't seen him really ever use in his career. He even called back to some of the old moves he stopped using during the mid-run of his career, during like the 2010s, like something like the leg drop from the top rope, things like that he kind of just stopped doing. So I'm really excited for this, and I love that they just dove right into it, like you said, Matt. This is exactly how things needed to be handled. Don't let us sit here and steam on the ending of WrestleMania even further by trying to explain it away. Cena comes out. He lets us know how quick time is moving. We've already basically gone through, almost a fourth of the dates that he has, basically, at this point. We're at 27 remaining dates, not matches, dates. He made sure to explain that to us all. Are you worried that this is going to go by too quickly? I didn't realize we were already almost 10 dates into the 36 he gave us.
Yes, and honestly, this is kind of my whole gripe with it, because at the end of the day, I grew up a Cena fan. You guys know, or at least I've tried to explain how much, kind of just Cena's character in WWE means to me. And I do have a problem with this. I feel like the whole heel character and the thing that he's been doing is just an excuse for kind of lazy writing. That's how I felt about that main event at Mania. That's how I feel about only having 27 dates left. It feels like, yes, his character is he's going to ruin wrestling. But in a way, I don't know, I kind of see through it, and I'm like, I don't know, it almost feels like a scapegoat to just make things easy. So yeah, I definitely do worry that it's going to go quick. I'm hoping that kind of it's a redemption arc story, and I would be surprised if he retires a heel. I really am hoping, as a Cena fan, that he kind of has some epiphany or storyline where maybe he overcomes The Rock, or I don't know if it's like an apology to Cody or teaming with Cody, whatever it is, almost like how Roman and Cody ended up teaming in the long run. I'm hoping that happens, but with only 27 dates, it's going to go by quick, man. It feels like week by week we're making these episodes so fast. So, yeah, I do agree that I think it's going to go by quick.
Yeah, I mean, and it's one of those things where I guess just, take it in, enjoy it as much as you can as it's happening. But when he sat there counting down, that's one of those things, like countdowns like that in my face. It's like anxiety kind of thing. And to see him count down from 36 and he got all the way to 27, I was like, there's no way we're already that close. That's like, we're already approaching half of his dates remaining now. So relish in it. We're going to have to enjoy it. And we got Randy Orton versus John Cena to kick off the championship run. But it wasn't the only big thing that happened last night. Not too long afterwards, we got a rematch of the tag team championship in the women's division. Becky heel ultimately turning on Lyra Valkyria in what is now going to be essentially a mentor versus mentee kind of situation here, but it could potentially lead to something bigger, and we'll get into that a little bit later here. But what were your thoughts on this? Because you told me you did have some gripes with the setup here, but the ending of it you were, okay with?
Yes. So in general, I don't want to sound so negative on this episode, but I do feel like, and again, an scapegoat for WWE and Raw After Mania is that you just recycle the same match that happened literally hours before. So going into this night, when I saw that this match was happening, I wasn't a fan. I was really going to see Becky and Lyra versus Liv and Raquel again for the title. And then the titles change hands. I was just like, okay, so you give Becky your big moment at Mania, but long-term plans, that wasn't in it. What's the whole deal with Bayley? Like, there's just a lot of unanswered questions in this kind of storyline here. But what saved it definitely was the Becky heel turn. I was like, you know what? At least there's some direction. This isn't just going to be a last hurrah for a Becky Lynch random run where she's going to become like a Becky Hogan. Like, I like that there at least seems to be some storylines, and a lot of people are theorizing what could happen. Maybe Becky gets led into a group or goes on this monster title run. Who knows? So I do think the heel turn kind of made sense. Maybe, we're finally getting some actual story development here. But in terms of the match itself, yeah, I'm usually never a fan of just, like I said, the recycled match we just saw literally 24 or 48 hours prior on the Raw After Mania.
That's fair. I'm with you on that. Getting the match so quickly is a little bit jarring. But again, they clearly have some sort of plan in mind. And actually, as you were talking that out, the thought just came to my mind. And I feel like there's so many ideas people are running with as far as what Becky Lynch could possibly be doing. I almost forgot that Bayley was attacked backstage. Was it Becky? Was Becky shoehorning herself into this situation? Is she going on some run and her and Bayley have a history together as friends, now enemies, of course. And of course, she had history as a mentor to Lyra Valkyria. Is this something where Becky's just coming for everyone here in one big final run? Because she's kind of alluded to the fact that, maybe she is a little bit closer to the end of her career than the start of it. So there's so many angles they can take it. And there's a big one we'll get to a little bit later. So make sure you're sticking around. But there's one return I want to ask you about because, and I've talked about this a few times here and there on the show, I am a WWE guy. I don't consider myself a diehard wrestling fan, but I am a big WWE fan. I don't watch too much of what's going on outside the Fed. Rusev makes his return. Now, I'll lay out my feelings towards Rusev. Loved him as the Bulgarian Brute. He and Lana were phenomenal together during the early stages of his run. John Cena basically killing that momentum at WrestleMania 31 via the golden shovel that everyone makes fun of him for is not one of the greatest moments in my in terms of what I loved about Rusev. So after that, I wasn't super big on the Rusev Day. I know I'm kind of in a section of my own about that, but him coming back doesn't move the needle a ton for me. I'm looking forward to seeing what he does. What do you think of Rusev's return?
So, as a wrestling fan and someone that did actually kind of step away from WWE for a few years and got into AEW, I actually got to see his run a bit as Miro. Not going to focus on that because that's old news. However, for this, I'm excited. I do think Rusev as an individual is an incredible wrestler. I buy into it. Just like you said, I loved his run. I actually was a fan of Rusev Day. I always love when kind of that white hot gimmick gets over. So I was all for LA Knight. I was all for, even nowadays you could say Dom Mysterio's kind of been in that white hot role. Jey Uso. I've always liked the guy that kind of is pushing the needle with the merch and the catchphrase. That was Rusev at one point in time in WWE. And now that he's back kind of more with his, almost like how Cody came back as the American Nightmare, something you hadn't seen in WWE before. Rusev is coming back as Rusev, but it definitely seems more like he's going about how he was presented in AEW as Miro. So I'm excited to see it, but I also can't lie that I also don't know if it pushes the needle, because I look at guys like Andrade, or you could even argue maybe even Rey Fenix is bound to kind of get lost in the shuffle after just losing to El Grande Americano at WrestleMania and not even really getting too much follow-up on that last night. I am worried. I feel like Rusev is kind of just going to get lost in the shuffle, same old story. And I don't know the full story, but I know with AEW, he kind of got upset. And that's why he even left that company in the first place, that he just felt like his character wasn't being used properly. I'm pretty sure, however he ended up leaving, whether he was fired or released or left on his own will in WWE the first time, it was probably for the same reasons. He also constantly was getting lost in the shuffle or buried by John Cena or just Vince McMahon himself. So I hope he does well, but I also can't say I'm that optimistic about it, because the roster is just loaded right now, and I do see him just getting kind of lost in it.
Yeah, that is my biggest concern. I loved Rusev when he was like the killer Bulgarian brute. I thought it was fantastic, and my hope is that they lean into that some more with this run. Like, yeah, it's probably going to be shades of some Miro stuff from AEW as well, but I'm hoping, I mean, because he is a massive human being, and he looks great right now, so I still hope they can lean into that dominating force and presence that he is. But to your point, the roster's loaded. If he doesn't return last night, it does not really change anything in my eyes. Like, it's still a great show. It was a nice spot return for him, but this is one of those things where I'm cautiously optimistic. I'm just hoping that they utilize him well, because I don't really know what his role is. The last thing we got to get into, though, the main event. This was something that I don't think a soul saw coming here, and I was actually in my mind thinking, interestingly enough, nothing from Bron Breakker. We saw an IC championship match, and Bron Breakker wasn't even involved. But the reveal, the Heyman stable, people calling it, maybe the potential, how is the name slipping me right now? Evolution 2.0, my goodness. Evolution 2.0, whatever you want to call it. Seth Rollins, Bron Breakker, and a potential wild card. We'll talk in 1 second. I'm here for it. Bron Breakker and Paul Heyman has been such a logical pairing in my eyes for at least like the last year or so. Even when he was in NXT, my thought process was Bron Breakker's got to hook up with Paul Heyman at some point. And the further we've gotten with Breakker just being this physical, dominating, freak nature athlete that can do things that you don't really see other people do because of how athletic he is for his size, it was just a perfect match in my eyes. The fact that we're getting it, and it's with Seth Rollins and this potential super stable we're getting now, the sky's the limit.
Yes, I absolutely love this, and it just feels like perfection, because I remember being on this cast and making the point that I was always kind of iffy on Bron Breakker, not because I don't think he's talented, not because I don't enjoy his work. I think he is an absolute, just, almost like a Brock Lesnar, like one of one. You're just a genetic freak. But one thing, my gripe with him was always like, I just didn't like the tweener stuff. I didn't like him being a face. I want him to just be a ruthless heel, and we got it. It's the same thing I've been saying about Seth Rollins, and now that they're both going to have kind of Paul Heyman, which I think definitely will benefit Bron way more than it does Seth, kind of as a voice, and to kind of, just like it was for Brock. Brock could say 3 words all year, and Heyman would do the rest. Yep. But it worked, because then in the ring, Bron can carry himself. Seth can carry himself. And Seth in his own right can talk. It's just the perfect pairing. It makes sense. I'm excited to see who else, how many others get added to kind of this forming stable, what the whole reasoning is, and how it just kind of gets, tied together into other storylines. But it was perfection. He's coming off the loss for WrestleMania for the Intercontinental Championship. Wasn't pinned. Doesn't really necessarily look weak, which is why, again, all these things just have been working out quite perfectly. So shout out Triple H for just planting these seeds perfectly. But I love it. It's the greatest pairing, and I can't wait to see where it leads.
Yeah, I know. Like, talk about something you didn't know you wanted until you got it kind of situation here. And I'm really looking forward to seeing how the stable evolves. And we'll touch on that now. I've been alluding to it the whole entire episode here. The man, Becky Lynch, happens to, and I'm not one to really believe in coincidences too much, turns heel in the same night that this faction is revealed. The internet's running with the idea, and I love it. Becky Lynch being the first female Paul Heyman woman, but the man herself being a Paul Heyman woman. this is something that I can get behind. She would be the perfect person. The only thing I'm struggling with here is just how we get to that. And I'm curious your thoughts on this because, again, there's a lot of avenues that Becky can go down as a heel right now, whether it's, feuding with Bayley because potentially maybe she's the one that attacked her at Mania, feuding obviously with Lyra now. Is she trying to elevate the Intercontinental Championship? How do we get Becky Lynch to be involved other than this is Seth Rollins' wife? It would make sense for her to join in.
Honestly, I don't think we have to complicate it. I think it is as simple as she is Seth Rollins' wife. Look at it in WWE's eyes. In the past, you had you brought Naomi and Jimmy Uso together just because they were married. At the end of the day, everything is so blended where these storylines and kayfabe is really dead. You just know kind of these wrestlers' social security numbers, who they're dating, where they are 24/7. That just kind of always gets murky, and you never know what is a storyline and what is kayfabe. So with that being said, I honestly think it is as simple as she's married to Seth Rollins. Everybody knows. Bron Breakker just popped up randomly and joined this faction. So I think it's going to be as simple as that. Maybe we do get more answers as to if it was Becky that attacked Bayley, but I honestly think it's going to be maybe the next episode of Raw, 2 weeks down the line. They're just going to come together. Maybe I'm wrong. Maybe it is going to be a whole Triple H masterclass with a storyline, but I don't want to complicate it. I think it's just going to get mixed together and it's going to work.
Fair enough. And you know what? You're right. Don't complicate it. Just make it what it is. And we've seen it before. That's an excellent point on your end there. So I guess we'll have to tune into Raw next week. Triple H doing a good job making me get over some of the feelings I had coming out of the end of WrestleMania 41. As always, if you made it to the end, it's greatly appreciated. From Matt to me, thank you all for watching. We'll catch you all next week following another edition of Monday Night Raw.